highest quality one?
No. So I've got this render. It's just been done on high quality, and it could be increased to best. Oh no, sorry, Photoshop's just come up there. So yeah, so you can go to best, and also if you go to edit, there are a couple of settings that don't even go on when you go to best. So you can even turn those on. They're down here. You've got these portal settings, and actually there are one or two others that you can even set higher than best. But for our purposes, high is going to be good enough in most cases. You can see there's a little bit of speckling around this light here. So if you increased it to best, it may reduce that. But also increasing the resolution can help. So with these render settings, the quality setting at the top is important, but when you're producing particularly print images, the resolution also makes a difference. So you've got the screen setting here, which you can see has set these pixels down below, and I don't really have any direct control over that. So if you're wondering how these pixels are determined, it's basically to do with what you see on the screen. So the physical number of pixels, the actual number of lights or dots on your screen in the area that your image is. So if you were to zoom out, if I was to zoom here, that would change the number of pixels there, and you can see it just did. All right, so that's good for setting up your renders, but then when you want to do your final renders and you need to set the resolution more accurately, you can go to Printer and then set an accurate resolution in DPI, dots per inch. And that's important because with print images, you should set a standard resolution generally. So these are good. 300 is a good print resolution. What you're going to see though, if I use that, is going to make the pixel dimensions much higher. Yeah.
So is that something that you can adjust once you've done the render?
No. So you need. So this is one of the main determinants of the render time, because basically the total number of pixels determines is probably the main determinant of how long it takes to render. So going back to screen, you can see that was 916 by 617 pixels, and that's a good way to think of your image size. Later on, we'll look at the size in millimeters, but really, in terms of the software and the way the computer deals with the file, the main thing for your images in terms of their size is the pixels. So in other words, this total number of pixels determines the total image size here, which you can see down below is 2.2 meg. If I go to Printer, you'll see if I go to say 75 dpi, it's probably going to be fairly similar or a bit less. So don't worry about the millimeters for now. You can see in brackets 614 by 413 pixels, which is less than a meg. Now, if I go to 150 dpi, you might think that's going to be double the pixels. It's actually 4 times, because it's double in each direction. Okay, so it's 1200 by 800 or so pixels, which ends up being 4 times the size, 4 meg, not just 2. So if I go to 300, it's going to be double again. So 4 times again. So we've gone from 75 to 300 is 16 times the pixels. Okay, so we're up to about 16 meg. So you've got to watch out when you go to larger image sizes. If you go up to a really large sheet size, say around an A2 or an A1 sheet, with a full render at 300 dpi, it's probably going to be beyond the capabilities of most of these computers. It's going to be absolutely huge.
If you want to print a smaller case like A3 size, would that be any...
Well, that's actually still fairly large for a full rendered image, an A3 size rendered image, because you've got to remember, they'll often be on a board with several other images and other graphics and text and things, so the actual rendered image may not be that big on its own. But you might have 1 or 2 that are, say, A3 on their own on a board. So say if you need to do that, like the big feature image, the way you do it is first to set the size. So you might have noticed there's also the size in millimeters there. Now, I'll go and show you an A3 image, but I'll do it with a different view. So that's what. Yeah. So I'm going to close this dialog for now and just go into a different. In fact, I'll duplicate this view. So I've got 3D View 8 there. I'm going to duplicate that view, just so I can change the settings and not affect the other one. So now back in the render dialog, I can still select the border there of my image. So I've just clicked on the crop border there, and now you can see at the top I've got size crop. And I've done that so I can show you how this size is being set. All right, so that's the size that's going to be on the sheet. All right, so if you wanted an A3 sized image on your sheet, either on its own on an A3 page or on a big A1 board, but A3 within that, you can put that size in. So A3 is 420 by 297, so I'll just put that in. Now, sorry, I've done something silly there. I'll just cancel that and do that again. So whenever you change the size here, if you're just trying to change the size, the finished size, change it to scale down the bottom, and that's much better. So now I'll just put in the width again, 420, and there we go. So the height now changed to 283 because it's in proportion. So I can't, if I make it 297, the width will be bigger, so I'm going to leave it at that. That's pretty close to A3. All right, so now you can see with that bigger image size, to have 300 DPI, I need more pixels.
So if you save like this in your computer, they will take a lot of memory from it.
A fair bit, yeah. As a TIFF file, that'd be fairly large. I'd say 20 meg or something. Not massive, but yeah, pretty big. If it was A2 or A1, it'd be probably over 100 meg. So they do get fairly big when they're sort of post size.
You know, just with the normal sheets, so we put everything on the sheets.
Yeah.
I've tried to import that into Photoshop,
Yeah.
try and use some of it, but I find like I don't know if it's the file size that's
Yep.
so big.
Yep.
I find like every time I try and transform the image,
Yep.
some Photoshop sort of doesn't
Yeah,
freeze, but it, like
a lot of it is the image size, so the computer
Yeah.
needs resources for these large images. Well, I'm going to show you now how to get into Photoshop, and you'll see. So that would be big. At 300, at A3, I'd have to think twice about that resolution, because you can see those pixel dimensions. That's 4,000 by 3,000, which is big. To give you an idea, an HD TV, you might have heard about 1080p being the standard for HD, which just means 1080 progressive. 1080i is the other one you'll see. So if you're buying a TV, it'll have that on it, 1080p or 1080i. And that's the standard for HD. That's actually the higher, that's full HD you might have heard about. So you've got the lower HD, which is 720. So that's 1080 in the vertical, and I think it's 1920 or something going across. So that's a fraction of this. That image size, if I go down to say 150, that's still bigger. If I go down to 75 DPI, that's getting closer. That's lower actually, but that's, I suppose, only a little bit bigger than HD TV. So if you're going to render this image, Photoshop's got to work on an image size that's at higher resolution than what you've got on a full screen, large format TV screen. So it's a lot of pixels, essentially. And so you can get away with lower resolution sometimes. For A3, believe it or not, is fairly large for a full rendered image. And so you could quite easily go down to 150 DPI. If you wanted an optimum presentation, then maybe you could go to 300 if you had a lot of time to render, because this would take a day to render. Sorry?
Which one's the RP 500 or?
Sorry, the DPI?
The DPI.
Yeah. So this is the overall number of pixels. No, that's way too high. Yeah, 600.
600, that's
Yeah, so yeah, 600. Yeah, that's, I mean, for really high quality printers. So we've got good printers here, they won't do 600.
Commercial presentation.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
the purpose that people use their high resolution.
Yeah, no higher than 300.
But I think
So-
usually the people use 300 DPI.
That's the standard, that's right. For
It's
print,
standard.
that's the print resolution standard now. Okay, so it's gone up to 300. You never need to go higher than that. Only really high quality printers will do higher. They all say they do higher. They all say they do thousands of DPI. It's rubbish. That's just a hardware trick. None of them, if you have a 300 DPI image, will print any different. So if it's higher than 300, you won't notice the difference.
When I work in printed graphic design before,
Yeah.
they said if I do like over than 3,000,
Yeah,
some
300.
machine they don't support to.
That's right. You can get errors. That's right. You can. Absolutely. Yeah. So you don't ever need to do higher than 300. If you're doing that, there's a problem. And you know, it's there for people who've got those really high quality printers, which are very expensive and they're not mass market general consumer printers at all. 300. Yep. 300, that's right. If you can, that's the best, because these plotters will easily print that, and you'll notice the difference. But if you have to, 150, even though it sounds like it's a lot less, because it's a quarter the pixels, you won't notice that much of a difference, especially on a larger image. On these printers, you'll get away with it most of the time, and you can render it in a much more practical time period. So, so think about that, and you can see that's still quite a lot of pixels. That will take at least an hour or two to render on the highest quality. So, that's still something to have to plan for. And so I'm going to go back to screen now, and you'll see the one I'm working with is a fraction of that. It's still reasonable quality for screen display. If you were doing a slideshow, so for PowerPoint and things like that, the resolution I mentioned before for HD is fine. So 1080 by 1920 is a good resolution for slideshows, and that's not much more than what I've got at the moment.
Does that DPI setting affect how long it takes to render?
Absolutely. It's probably the main determinant.
Okay.
Yeah, that along with the quality up here.
On the screen, how many DPI?
For print resolutions, 150. So for this project, what I'd be expecting is
Oh, not doing 300.
not if they're A3, but if they're smaller. So I think I said A4 would be a good size, and I've actually put some minimum pixel dimensions in there, I'm pretty sure. So I'll just open the brief up actually, and so this is where are we? Get the latest one. That's it, I think. Yep. Okay, so okay, so here I've said yes, at least 150 DPI, and then I'm sure I would have said that it should be a certain, A4 size. Okay, so going back into Revit, you can see this is A3 size at the moment, and at 150 that gives quite a lot of pixels.
Sorry, can you show me how to change the image size?
Yeah, I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to select this border, and then back to size crop, and then scale down the bottom, and I'll put in the new size. So I want this to be A4, so that'll be 210 on the vertical side. No, I'll do the width though, so 297 across, and that should be less than 210. Yeah. Okay, so that's full bleed. If you need to print on A4, then you'd make it a little bit less than that again. Okay, so you can see there at 150 DPI, that's only 1754 by 1180. Now, let's say we do need to print on an A4 sheet, then I would make it probably around 250. Yeah, sure, go for it. Yeah, no idea. Okay, and so there, 168 for the height is good, and now you can see that's 1476 by 994 pixels, which is good. So that wouldn't be much longer to render than what I just did. And so that's the sort of pixel dimensions that you'd want for your final renders for this project.
So that's just because you put in 210 verticals into that.
You'll have made it even less than that. So I've made it so that it would fit within the borders of an A4 sheet. So I've made it 250 wide and 170 or so high. But, the proportions could vary. Okay, so now going back to my original view, I can bring up the rendering again. Okay, so just imagine that I rendered with the higher pixel dimensions. I don't want to do that just because it'll take too long to render in front of you. And so I want to show you now the other adjustments. So once you've rendered, then quite often you'll need to adjust the exposure. Now always remember that you should start by having the right lighting setting to begin with. So if you don't have the right option here, then it's going to be difficult to adjust the exposure from there. All right, so make sure you choose the appropriate light settings. Yours are going to be all interior, so you just need to decide whether you're using the sun or your artificial lights or both. That's really all there is to it. And at first, I'd recommend that you go for one or the other. It's harder to get them working in combination because the exposure is more difficult to adjust. That's right, yeah.
That's right. Voice.
Yeah, it can be because especially when you've got a lot of sunlight, you need to make the artificial lights really bright to make them do anything. So, you know, it can be easier just to do one or the other, sun only or artificial only. And that's what I've been showing you. And so now I'm going to go to adjust exposure, and you'll see I really should be able to do a lot of improvement to this image in here. And the one that you would have seen in the video, I've adjusted that quite a bit. So I'm going to show you how I did that. Just by eye, you can adjust the exposure value, usually dragging it slightly, and make sure you realise it's very, very sensitive.
What were those values again? Sorry, you mentioned before saying for indoor the exposure. You know, these.
Oh, yeah. Indoor at the minimum would be about 2,
Yeah.
and then outdoors at the maximum would be about 15. So you can see I started on 8 and I've gone down to about 7, and it's really brightened it up, made it much more enticing as an image generally. My highlights there, you can see are all the way to being full dark. I want them to be a little bit brighter, so I'll take them out. Could even be brighter still. Want a bit more contrast, that's what I'm kind of trying to get here. It's a bit wishy-washy, this image at the moment. And then my midtones, usually it's not a bad idea to leave them alone at first. That's the one that can really, again, bring that wishy-washy look back to your image if you go too far with that. So I'm going to leave that for now. My shadows, though, I definitely want more contrast in my shadows. So I'm going to bring them to the right, make them darker. That's maybe a bit too far, so back a bit. And maybe back a bit again. Still more. Yep, that's more like it. Okay, so now I can probably stand to have the image a bit brighter still. So I can go up and adjust the exposure value again, and again brighten it up, and then maybe come back and see if I can make the shadows darker again, because I really do want to get some contrast with artificially lit scenes in particular. You want to make the areas that have light stand out from the areas that are in shadow, and get that mood lighting happening. So. Now, I mean, I would go further with this normally. I'll just leave it at that though for now. I'm sure you can see how you can keep adjusting those. Don't be afraid to use the midtones; they can definitely help, but you just don't want to go crazy with those because it really can reduce the contrast in ways you don't like. So then the white point value isn't going to affect the overall brightness or darkness. It's the colour of the lighting or the temperature. And so here, I'm actually going to make it a bit warmer. Normally I go for cooler, but because this has a lot of timber, I want to bring out the warmth in that timber, and so maybe bring the white point value up. Have you worked with Kelvin values at all? Kelvin values, so it's a temperature value. You'll come across that with lighting. So lights like, say, incandescent lights and so factory lighting, things like that, metal halide, and those lights have fairly warm light, so it's kind of orange. Fluorescence and say some LED lights, things like that, have more cool lighting, so more blue. And it's really obvious. Maybe if I do it an extreme, so here I'll make it much cooler, and you'll see that's going to go, so much warmer, I mean, so that's going to go very orange. If I make it much cooler, not all the way, just make it much cooler, that's going to go very blue. And it's a tone, so you can, as you get closer to neutral, see there's a more subtle effect, but still noticeable. So there, that's, you can see, if I go a bit more orange maybe. Okay, so that's, still, well, it's not subtle, it's fairly obvious, but that's still got the natural colour of the timber. Maybe this is getting a bit artificial.
Then can you check that is the maximize volume.
So,
Go to the maximize the volume.
It becomes yellow.
Yeah, maximum volume.
oh, maximum warmer. Oh, yeah, it'll be bright.
just want to
Yeah, sure.
see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, fluorescent orange, and then the maximum blue is even worse. Yeah, maximum cool. Yeah. So there we go. So that's probably about what I'd want, maybe even a bit warmer. Yep, sure.
Particularly want to create some mood in that particular time.
Yeah.
And you put those warm colours.
Yeah, that's that's right. That the white point value definitely has a big effect. There are other things as well, so I'm going to in Photoshop do more adjustments, but no, that's a big one for photos. Yeah, no, it is. It's just like working with a camera, really. All the adjustments you can do afterwards with photos as well. So here, I'm going to actually make it a fairly warm image because I know I can take some of that orange away by reducing the saturation. So here, if you haven't dealt with saturation before, that's the amount of colour. So there you can see by reducing the overall colour and making it more grey, I can still have that warmth without getting the fluorescent sort of look. Look, honestly, I would want to adjust this further, but I'll leave it at that for now, and because I want to show you some Photoshop. Alright, so when you want to save the image, there are two things you should do. It's a good idea to save to project, okay, because that saves a copy of the rendering in the Revit file. So that's a good thing to do, just because it's going to keep a copy for you. But the most important thing is that you export, I think. So especially if you plan on adjusting the image, it's really important that you export. Okay, so when you export, you can save the image in one of these formats, and I'll show you them in a moment. So I'm just looking for my... Exactly, yep, so that's what I've got it set to at the moment, but you've got these other formats as well. TIFF or PNG, they're the best. So look, for just quick renders that you don't really care about, use JPEGs, but if you care about them and you want them kept as a record, so JPEGs are just a quick, they're a small format, they're a compressed format, but they lose quality.
Sorry, when you first name Revit,
Yeah.
so does work out this K already? Like,
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's a good way, if you can get the person in Revit, that's a good way to do it, but you can't do all your people that way, and you have to do some in Photoshop as well. Yeah, but if you can do them in Revit, it's generally easier.
Again, please, what do you recommend PNG on?
Oh yeah, so yeah, PNG is the one I'm going to show you. TIFF is the best all-round format, it's the highest quality, but PNG has some good tricks, and it's almost as good quality, in fact in some ways it's the same quality as TIFF. So PNGs are really good. I mean, I'd recommend you do both. If it's a really good image and you want to make sure you've always got a copy of it, do both. Because they store slightly different things.
To open those types of files in like any computer.
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, you can. So I'll save both formats. I'm going to save PNG and TIFF. And then in Photoshop, I'm going to go to open the TIFF file. And I just need to remember where I got it. There it is. Okay, so this is the PNG file, and I'll open the TIFF file as well. Alright, so not really much of a difference. Now, with the... Oh, now, sorry, I should save a JPEG for you as well, because there's one other thing I can show you that it does that the others don't or won't make as easy. So, JPEG. I'll go and open that one. Alright, so you can see with the JPEG, the background has come in automatically. So that's one thing good about JPEGs, if you want that. Now, it's there in the TIFF file as well, it's just in a different channel. It'll be in, oh no, where's the alpha channel? The alpha channel hasn't come in. Anyhow, don't worry about that. So I'll just go in there. The TIFF file should have an option for an alpha channel. I'm just going to save over the, no, I'll save it with a different name. No, it didn't give me an option. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of rendering code. I normally render with 3ds Max, and I may be thinking of that. So I'm sure the alpha channel will be in there somewhere with the TIFF file. It's unusual for it not to have that. But look, if you really want the backgrounds, maybe you can use a JPEG. I prefer not to have the background anyway, so I'm going to go back to the original TIFF. And if you're wondering, just make sure you realise up the top here that I've been using the tabs to switch between
we can use a little
the
bit
different
like
files.
copy the video background of the JPEG and put in.
Oh, you can, yeah,
yes.
you can. But I'm going to do something even better. So I'm going to go and open a background file that I have. So I've got, here we are, some backgrounds here.
Is that on a common drive?
No, this is, but look, so you do have this folder. I've got, yeah, I've put a copy of this on the common drive for you, yeah. It's there. Okay, so I've got a copy of a skyline there. It's Hong Kong, and
A little bit of Hong Kong into old time.
that's it. No one can tell. Okay, so I've just copied and pasted,
Yes.
and hopefully that's something you can do. Now, I did that fairly quickly. Maybe I should just tell you. I did Control A in here, so Control A selects everything. Control C for copy, and then that's right, exactly. So in the new file, Control V, and it's put it onto a new layer. Now, you need the Layers panel open to see that. If you don't have it, it's on the Window menu, and you've got Layers there. And now you can see I've got my layers. Now, notice Layer 1's on top of Layer 0. Usually, you should be able to drag Layer 1 underneath. But if it doesn't let you do that, if Layer 0 is a background, then all you need to do is copy Layer 0 by dragging it onto the new Layer button down the bottom, and that'll make a copy. So then it doesn't matter what happens with the image now. Okay, so I'm going to drag Layer 1 under my copy, my new layer, so the background's underneath. I'm going to use Control T to transform it. That'll let me stretch it. Okay, so I can make it bigger or smaller. I can also move it. Now this one's difficult because the angle of the perspective is different. So if you think about where the horizon would be,
You're in Hong Kong.
right? So instead of being up high, this would need to be fairly low, I'd say. So we need to be looking out over the water.
You can,
You can rotate it.
sorry. That would be better. That take this one in temperature.
So
Take this one to make more temperature because
transparent.
yes.
Oh no, that's not the. Yeah, I know that. No, but look, the problem is the perspective isn't the same.
Or you can use transform.
Yeah, I know that. Yes, I'm going to do that in a moment. Okay, so with different images with different perspectives,
Yeah.
the most important thing when you're lining them up is the horizon line. And so you can see
yeah.
here the horizon line would be about there.
Yes.
The horizon for this image is actually down here as well. So if we were looking out over the water, this might make sense. Or we could have it sort of like that, but it's going to be difficult to ever line the perspective up. I know with this image that it's quite difficult to get good perspectives to line up. So you can try using, just going back to here, you can try using the perspective transform, but that can be a bit difficult as well. I'll just show you. So if we stretch the bottom out here, or the top, maybe just try and straighten it so you've got a similar angle. So these vertical lines need to be similar to the window. That's really the main thing. Then it can come up and you can probably get away with it just. But it's never going to be great. Oops. Sorry, just like that. Okay, so there we go. So I've got a background though. I might then want to adjust that. And so even though it doesn't line up, it might be good enough as a night or a darkened image, because now I can go and make adjustments. And this is really the main thing I wanted to show you in Photoshop, making adjustments to the image. Now, I'll start just by doing exposure in here, just to show you something similar to what we did in Revit, so you can still adjust exposure further. In here, you'll see you've got similar values to the ones we have in Revit. So you've got the exposure value there, so I can make that brighter or darker.
You're a pro.
And we can use the gamma correction as well, try and make it look more like a nighttime image. Or a darker image. I mean, you probably could only get something to look maybe like sunset here.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have any nighttime skylines here, but I can always just go and get I've got some nighttime skies or dusk. That's probably the closest I've got on this computer. Okay, so I can just try a different background. Again, Control A, Control C, and then into the original, Control V, and that one may work better. So you can try out different backgrounds and adjust them independently, and that's much easier than in Revit, setting the background, waiting for it to render, and seeing if it looks good. Yep.
So you just copy and remove the layers, that's it.
That's right, exactly.
So how does it know if it's a window can show this?
It knows, it knows. So Revit knows what the background is, yep.
And why do you have to press Control A first?
Just to select it.
Select all.
Yep, yep. And so here, I mean, there are other ways, but that's an easy way. So if I use exposure on this background, it may give me a better result that fits in more with the rendering. It doesn't need to be technically accurate, and you know, it's often about conveying an impression and something that ties in with your design ideas as well. So,
How do you get this image back into Revit onto
oh, so you can insert that once it's all done. So you can always just save these, save as, in the same format. So TIFF is a good one for print, and then you can insert those back into Revit really easily. Okay, so that's adjusting the background. Now, for a lot of your interiors, you may not even have a background, but it's important to be able to do that where you do. But then also, don't forget, you can adjust the main image, and that's one of the things people forget. And I can actually show you here some of the images I've adjusted that other students have done. And where did I put David's stuff? Well, David, I'll show everyone's his, and he did, because he did some of the best work, but he didn't adjust his images as well as he could have. And let's see, did I put the originals? So these not the originals, unfortunately. These are all the adjusted ones. Oh, damn. I was hoping I could show you the originals. So these are some adjusted rendered images that a student did, and he was a great designer and really creative, coming up with really good ideas all the time, but let himself down sometimes. And I wondered why he wasn't getting great marks in his design subjects all the time. It's because his presentation wasn't that good all the time. So this is a heavily adjusted image. The original that he gave me was just way too dark and gloomy, and you could barely tell what was going on. And it was the same with all of them. They were all just way too dark. They're still a little bit dark. I did adjust them even more after this. But, damn, I wish I could show you the original. 3D Studio Max. He started in Revit, but then then developed it up.
Rendering it in the 3D map.
Yeah.
So then if you're going to go like the higher process, you just start doing Revit, then you go to this 3D Max one, and then you go Photoshop or not?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So later on you might do all your rendering in 3ds Max.
Give you like the V-Ray or just the normal 3D?
Yeah, I use V-Ray within 3ds Max, but Mental Ray is pretty close these days. I think it can do as good a job. So so here now I'm going to adjust the rendered image. And often a good thing to try is these auto adjustments. If they work, then it's great. If they don't, just undo it. So here I'm going to go auto tone. I think that's better. Okay, I'm going to undo it and just show you the difference. Okay, I think that's a real improvement. It's toned down that sort of overall warmth and just made it more targeted. So that's a big improvement. Auto contrast can often be a good one because it's subtle. And then the one to watch out for, auto colour, because you'll have often set a particular tone and a colour tone, and you don't want that to go, yeah, see when it does the auto colour, I think it's a bit, makes it a bit too neutral. So I'm going to undo that. I think I want the warmth. But then, they're auto adjustments. So often they won't do what you want. Don't be surprised if they don't, if none of them do anything good. But then you can fine tune heavily using these adjustments. So maybe I should start with brightness contrast because that's a common one. I think exposure is often a better way of adjusting brightness these days, but if brightness works, then it's good. So here you can see overall brightness. It's fairly self-explanatory. Contrast, really important to be able to increase that when you need to, and especially for print images, it can make a big difference. Yeah, so it gives more 3D, I suppose, and depth. Now, that's getting there, but it's starting to be oversaturated now. So back to adjustments, and you've got hue saturation. So they're two very important panels, brightness contrast, hue saturation. Now, the saturation there, like I said, too high, so I'm going to tone that down. Then the lightness also often needs to be adjusted when you do that. I can probably bring that down a bit as well. Okay, now I'm going to open the original and just, we'll flick back to the TIFF, which is basically the original, and you'll start to see how that's really being, brought under control. I mean, the overall colours aren't that different, but the tone is much more balanced. Now, levels can be a very important one, but if you are not experienced, it can be difficult to control. It's sometimes good just to try bringing the ends in and see if just by eye it's going to give you what you want. And really what it's going to do is clamp the image, which I don't really want to explain too much at this stage, but just try it and you'll see those two at the end are the easiest to work with at first. If you start getting into different channels, then that's when you get too complicated. So I'll leave it at that. The output levels as well, no, we'll leave that. So I've got some issues up here now with the lighting. Now that is also a rendering artifact, and I'd want to render that at high quality to start controlling and making that look better. But you can also try HDR toning. Now this is kind of a secret weapon with renderings, and it works much better with HDR output, and this isn't. So this is clamped output, and HDR is a particular format that you'll see there are a few. EXR is the one I use a lot, but HDR is another one. And it's just a format like TIFF or PNG. There are HDR formats, and so this HDR toning works much better with those formats. And you'll see they're going to come online more and more in years to come because a lot of it's tied to the hardware capabilities and what's happening
So how can you
there.
separate HDR?
You can't add Revit, but 3ds Max and other programs can. Yeah.
That is the new type file.
Kind of, yeah, it is. It is a fairly new file, yeah. I mean, it's been around for about 10 years, but it's only starting to be really used a lot now, yeah.
And that is better than TIFF or what?
Yeah, it can be. Not for final for a final image. I wouldn't use it. They're not meant for that. So they're for the original image, and they're for storing all the colour information. And so it's for working on when you're working with photographic images particularly. But for print, you still need to make it into a TIFF or something in the end. But anyhow, I'll show it to you. And so it's going to tell me it's going to flatten the document. That's okay. I'm happy with that. And so you can see there, it's already done something pretty interesting. Now, be prepared with this one for some pretty sort of out there crazy things to happen. It's technically quite complex what's going on. Gamma though, you can see you can really do some, I think, pretty great things when you get right into it. So that sort of mood effect I think is definitely being accentuated. Now that's something you can do with Gamma. Not really the purpose of it, but it's something that just tends to happen. And that might do, but I'll just show you the original. So without and with, again, it's one of those subtle things, but it really can beef up and emphasise certain things in your image. So it's those sort of adjustments I wanted to show you mainly with Photoshop. And when you're first using the program, they're the things you probably want to start with. And I mean, you've probably seen a lot of this already, even if you haven't used Photoshop before. I know those apps on iPhones or whatever that people are using are huge at the moment. My partner can't get enough of them. She's on there every night adjusting all her photos and getting... And look, it does make a huge improvement, just the automatic tone adjustments those apps give you. And they're essentially doing the same sort of thing as Photoshop will do here, but Photoshop gives you every possible adjustment you can think of. So, you know, don't ever pay for those apps that are, I don't know, only $5 or something, but, you know, you've all got, well, you probably all have Photoshop, which does all of those things and more. So if you haven't done much with photo adjustment, give it a go. It's, I think, a really great thing. And I just wish I could show you some originals. I've got all my files on a big network drive now, so I don't have everything with me that I normally would. Where would I have the originals? No, I don't have them. So I'll just maybe show you how to get that back into Revit. I did want to show you, actually, sorry, just very briefly. This isn't really at all part of this subject, and not even something I was definitely going to show you, but hopefully we've got a bit of time. You can see here we've got these little issues with the window. That just looks wrong. Now, there are lots of things that can cause that. It's a rendering artifact, and it could be caused by problems in the geometry. So I might have modelled that badly, and there could be glass overlapping the framing or something, or it could be something else. It could be some other rendering issue. Now, I could go back into Revit and fix it, hopefully, and re-render it, but if I'm in a hurry, or if I just can't work out what's causing it, another way would be to, sorry, I was zooming in there, would be to just correct it in Photoshop. And so, just zooming right in there, and I'll just show you a couple of direct editing tools, and a really good one I think is Clone Stamp. So with Clone Stamp,
did you set the grid into this?
No, that's automatic in Photoshop. Just zoom in enough and you'll see that.
Yeah, what?
That did the pixels.
Yeah, I know, but there is look like out of this grid.
Yeah, no, that's how it should look. Yeah, that's how it always looks. So, okay, so here I'm going to use Alt, and you can see it changes to a target, and then I'm going to click somewhere. That sets a target location. Now I'll let go of Alt, and I'm going to go and paint. Can you see how it's using that target, and it's copying from there onto where I'm painting? Oops, now I've gone a bit too far there, so I'll just undo that. Just do it again.
How does it know what colour to do?
Because I'm basically copying and pasting, so where that target is, I'll just do it again, Alt, or there, and then now I'll paint, and you can see it's picked up where that target was, and it's pasting from there onto wherever I'm painting.
What tool was that on the side?
Clone Stamp, so over here. So, so yeah, there we go. Yep. Okay, so really good for photographic type images, and you'd be amazed how much you can adjust. Yeah, zooming right in can help. So, oops.
Which Photoshop version is that one? This CSC?
Oh, it's been in Photoshop since forever. Yeah. Okay, so there we are. You can see how it's getting there. I'd have to do a bit more work on it, but that area is starting to look the way it should. And you know, if you keep zooming out, you'll see that you know, because you zoomed right in, you can see little errors, but when you zoomed out, you may not even notice them. And so, you know, if I kept going, I could easily make that look right. I'll leave it as it is for now. And so then, and so you can see though, I've lost my layers from the HDR toning, and that's okay though. I'm going to go and do a save as, and either PNG or TIFF. TIFF is always good for printing. And I'll give it a new name. So I'll call this 3D interior light print, something. Okay, and then you can usually just leave the default options for your TIFF. And then in Revit, on my sheets, so let's go to one now. So on any sheet, I'll just move these over. I can go to Insert, and then Image, and there's my file. So now I can just place that somewhere on the sheet, stretch it if I need to, otherwise that's all there is to it. So put it down there, I don't know.
And that was a TIFF file, that one?
Yep. Yep. So the only thing though, if you want a label, you need to add that separately. So an easy way is just to draw in some text on the Annotate tab. You can just use the regular text tool, and if you don't have any of your own text styles, you can just use the preset sizes usually from there, from the properties, and then just draw in whatever text you want. So I'd say something like that. Now, you don't need to insert them onto sheets for this project, remember. You just need to have the separate image files. And so you need those for the rendered images, the 4 TIFF files, one for each rendered interior. And then you need PDFs of your plans and other orthographics. I don't want it on sheets. Oh, sorry, if you don't, sorry, I don't mind it in your Revit file. That's absolutely fine. Yep, of course. And it could help you though to have sheets. You don't have to have sheets, but it can help, because to make the floor plan and the section and the isometric views, you've got the option of either printing them directly from the view. So if I go into my level 1 floor plan, that one's not very well set up for printing. So I'd still set it up. So I'm going to duplicate it. Right click and then duplicate with detailing. And then I might rename it, and I'll call this level 1, oops, level 1 floor plan. And so that would be the name I wanted to have when it prints out. And now I can just go through and tidy this up quickly. So I'll select my elevation views and hide them, VH. The reference planes as well, VH, to hide them. Then I want to crop the view, so using the crop region, I'm going to just show that down the bottom, and then I'm going to stretch that so it just encompasses the unit. Maybe I could have the corridor as well.
This shortcut that we use, VH, and all that, works for all computers? Or
Yeah,
just for this one?
yeah, all, yeah, that's a default. Yeah. View hide. Yeah. View hide. So it's the same as when you right click and then hide in view category.
So you just get rid of whatever you put on lines.
Okay, so I'm just cropping the view, and so you'll see now why I did the other areas around the unit. So the extra bits of wall and things that you have going around, outside of the actual unit are there, so that when you do drawings like this, you can crop it and show that the unit, or that the building continues on outside of your unit, and that's an important part of the presentation. Okay, so I've got these things like my door numbers. I don't want them either, so VH on them. So they are window numbers. The door numbers look different. That's a door number, so VH. Now the dimensions. You should have some dimensions, so I'm going to leave those, but I want them to be a bit neater. So again, just on the sheet.
Which dimensions do you want on
Mainly for your anything new, so the things that you're adding. These dimensions I've got there are for things that are already there, but I'm going to leave those just for the sake of it. But yeah, yours should be for all your new elements, and from the existing. That's the normal way to dimension, because those things are already there. The builder's going to... Yeah, anything new. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so and that's standard. So now look, it doesn't need to be fully dimensioned, but the overall dimensions. Yeah.
But does that include furniture and things?
No, no, oh,
Walls,
no,
walls,
not
things
furniture.
like
No,
that?
no, no, never dimension furniture.
We do it for institutions.
Yeah, it depends what it is. So built-in furniture, you can dimension the overalls, and then things, your main walls, definitely room sizes. But a good way to tidy up dimensions is, instead of having everything dimensioned with linear dimensions like this, say if you have a room dimension, this one is in the end going to be a little bathroom, so it's 1.5 by 1.6. Okay, so you could put some text there. So again, notice it's on the Annotate tab that I'm using text. And I'll make this a bit smaller, so 3 mil or something. And so 1.5, oh sorry, it was by 1.6 by 1.5 meters. Okay, so that's much cleaner and neater than having all of the dimensions. For presentation drawings particularly, you don't want technical looking dimensions everywhere, so keep them to a minimum, but you still want sizes described where you can. I've got some section lines here that I don't want, so I want some section lines, but I don't want all of them, so I'm going to hide those by element, the ones that I don't want.
Do you want the dimensions in millimeters?
Oh yeah, always, yep, always millimeters, yep. Okay, so I'm just generally getting the things the way I'd want them to show on my plan in the end, when I show this to other people. Notice I've still got the original level 1 floor plan there for me to work on, then that shows everything. Okay, so I could keep going and tidying this up. It's on fine at the moment. It may be okay on course for a project like this, for this sort of level of presentation. You maybe don't want the detail to show, but if you're going to do that, you need to remember that you have the course scale display to think about for all of your new walls, and you would need to go through and change the colour like that, the way I just have. So hopefully that, you can see now, is much clearer with the new walls shown a different colour to the existing walls. And what I would probably do there is even go a bit further and make those existing walls either black or white. Okay, because they've got black lines, showing it with no fill is totally acceptable. So
How did you do that so quickly? Sorry.
oh, this is the coarse fill. So notice I set the display here to coarse.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it's important to realise there, when you're using coarse, it's really good because you don't need to go and work with the full material. You're just going to edit type, and everything has its own coarse colour. As long as it's got the fill pattern here set to solid fill, then you can set a colour, or you can just set no pattern. And, oops, it should have, I don't know why
So you
it's
click on it and then you go into the...
still picking up that colour. Yeah, sorry, yeah, so just in edit type, that's right. So I'm just selecting the wall, edit type, and you'll see it's just there. So you don't have to go edit for the structure or anything. So I'll set this to white. It shouldn't... Oh, it's because I've got shading on. That's why. Okay, so there we go. That shouldn't be on shaded. That should just be hidden line. There we are. Now with shaded, I'll get the colours on the plan, I suppose, and that could be a good thing. But then I'd have to look at the wall again. So that's... For some reason, it's showing the wall colour. Don't know why. Anyhow, that's a structure, so I can set that to be white as well.
Also, Danny, there is some numbers in the sections and A, B, C, D. Is it important to show the floor plan or
Sorry, the
the section numbers?
The section numbers. Oh yes, it is. Yep, I'm going to show you that in a moment. Yes, yep, we should show that. So I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And so here, I think I do have to set solid fill, and that's something that I didn't think you had to do. And there we go. Okay, so that's better. Right, so that would be a good way to show anything that's existing, and so these walls should be the same. And so again, just by setting solid fill with white for the colour, we'll do that. There we go. So that now it's much clearer that this is existing, this is new, and then the only thing there will be the floor. And it'd be nice if that wouldn't show. I wouldn't be so worried about that, but well, maybe I'll just quickly show you a nice little trick. With Revit, you've got the option of adding masking regions. Okay, so I want all of that to show without the fill. No, sorry, that's too complicated. So masking regions are good, so they cover things up, but I would have had to show you a few things that are a bit tricky, so I've just thought of a different way. With that 3D view, I can select that floor. That's the bottom floor. Now I'm going back into the level 1 plan. I'm going to go to, on the Modify tab, Split Face. And then again, I just have to click onto the outside edge of that floor. And I'm going to make a boundary going around the outer edge of the unit. Now, I might just draw it with lines. So, yeah, it's going around the outside edge of the floor here. So this is a really easy boundary to draw. Yeah, I'll go around the duct. And it doesn't really matter where I go alongside this wall, as long as you go back to the orange line. So if you haven't used this split face very much, just make sure you do try it and you have a good idea what those orange lines are for. And so that's my new sub-region. I'm just going to finish that. And now back in a 3D view, yep, I can use paint. So you've got below split face, you've got the paint tool. And I've got a default material here, which is white. So then I can choose that outer face of my floor. You can see now it's white, but back in the plan, you'll see that the rest of it is still the original colour. Right, so now that default material isn't pure white, it's off-white. So I'm going to go and make it full white in materials here. Oh, there we go. I've got two defaults. That's great. All right, so I'm just going to make sure they're both full white. That's close enough. Let's just, there we go. And this one too. Don't know why there are two. Yeah, sometimes you'll still get a bit of shading there. That's to do with the lighting. So with consistent colours, it should at least make them the same. Let's go back to shaded. No, that's actually better in this case. So there we go. That's pretty good. And so that's how I may want it to be. I know I did spend a bit longer on that than I meant to, but it's good for you to see all of those things and just think about how you can get the graphics you want. Now, actually, this section I'll just hide in as well. Okay, so there's one last thing I really want to show you, and that is getting this into a PDF. So I just want to hide the last few things that are outside of the area of the view that I want. Yeah, so that's pretty close. So I'll just bring these up, and that might do it. So that's how I want the plan to look, and it's really important that you think about that. People think that printing is all about going to the file menu and choosing print, and then somehow magically getting it to
numbers, that's section numbers.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'll do that afterwards when I go to. I have to do the section view. So, okay, so this is just very last thing before I can now output that. So I can make a file now from here, and that's that's going to give me a pretty good output. So I'll just save the file. So don't forget, you'll need to have other text on there, and that is really important. So I'll maybe just copy a little bit more just to give you a better idea how things might look in the end. So that would be maybe a little bit bigger, and that is living or something, and so at least all of those main spaces labelled, and
we have to get like the name and under of the name what it is. That is the space.
yeah, that's always good. You don't have to have that, but it's a good thing if you can. Depends on the type of design, so just think about that. Okay, so this one I'll just move. That might do. I won't. Yeah. So okay. So now I'm going to go to print, and then Adobe PDF. So to make a PDF file, don't save to it, print to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of the most important things. And so you'll hear about PDF files. People all the time will ask you to make PDF files. But if you don't understand that generally you make them by printing to them, not by saving to them, then it can seem difficult to make them when they're actually very easy. So as long as they're a print format, and so as long as you have your graphics set up for printing, then they work really well. When you go to properties for your Adobe PDF printer, now do you all have this printer? Yeah, you do. Okay, so make sure you've got that, and then when you go to properties, you can set the page size just like you would for a printer. So I can choose A4 here. You can even set quality and other things like that. But the layout is probably the most important thing here. Portrait is what I want, and then you can do more in advance. But that's probably all you need to do generally. So layout and then the paper size, and then yeah, sure.
How do you set that up on your home computer?
So you need to have this program. So with the Adobe Suite, you'll get that installed automatically. So when you install any of those suites,
This goes into your printer.
yeah. Otherwise, there are free PDF converters you can download. Usually, just do a search for free PDF printer or converter. Okay, so now I've got the print properties set. I'm going to check the setup down here, and you can see it's picked up my paper size, but I'm going to set the zoom to 100%. That's really important. Otherwise, it will ignore the scale that you've set. All right, so then, so that's the main thing. Don't forget about that one. This is the main one people get wrong when they print. So zoom 100%. It's not going to save changes though. Now I'm going to preview it and see what fits on my page. Okay, so it's not going to fit at this scale at 1 to 50. It's too big for 1 to 8 for A4. So I'm going to click on print again, just so I can go back into that dialog box and click cancel. And I'm going to change the scale to 1 to 100. So again, it's important that you understand that, understand why different scales won't fit at certain sheet sizes. And then when you adjust your scale, things like your text will change size. They should, because yeah, in properties. So in properties, you've got the size that it'll print. Yeah. In properties, it'll have the size. In properties, this one, in the drop down. Yeah, so you've got to click on the text button, and then you'll see it in properties. Okay, so sometimes you do have to move your text around to see how it'll work at different scales. Okay, the size will change automatically, but that might mean the positioning is no longer any good. In some cases, you may need to make it smaller to make it work. So 2 mil is still legible, just. Okay, so now that would work, hopefully, for 1 to 100. But you do need to juggle things a bit when you change scales. It's still probably too big. Okay, so that's maybe about right. Okay, so going back to back to print now. Oops. It's already got the settings. So if I go to setup here, you can see it's kept the settings I had previously. So I'm going to click preview now, and you can see it fits onto my page, but it's not on the right part of the page. So I'm going to go back to setup and use center. And so again, no, and preview, and now it's in the right place on the page. So if I use print again, then I can just click OK, and it's going to make a PDF file. So I'll just call this level 1. Plan.
What was the number one?
So
Same as.
no, just print. So when you print, it automatically will make this file. Okay, so that's all you need to do for this project. But if you want things like the numbers in your section references, then you need to do a little bit more. Okay, so you can see down here I've got some sheets already, but I'm going to make a new sheet just by right-clicking there. And then you can see there I've got some title blocks loaded already, but I want a different one. So I'm going to use load. And then I've got some title blocks here, and I should have... Actually, no, I don't have a blank one here. Do I have it in my other... No. Okay, so I'm going to make a blank one. Right, so on the network here, I've put some blank ones for you, but I don't have it on this computer, so I'll just quickly make one. It's not hard at all to make a title block. Just by opening any that you have in the library, you can just delete the parts you don't want. So I'm going to delete all of this and just leave the sheet. Just a blank page. Okay, so I'm going to do a save as, family, and then just save it into that same folder. Actually, I'll make sure it's in my main one. And I'm going to call it A4 portrait blank. Now, you should be able to find one that I've already made in the NMore library here, but if you don't, it's easy to make it. Okay, so now I can go back into here in my project, new sheet, and then load, and in metric library, title blocks, yeah, there is my new blank sheet. Okay, and it will make a blank page for me. The advantage of having that is that I can now put the floor plan I've just made onto the sheet, and you can see there, I can see really clearly how that fits onto the A4 sheet. So I wouldn't have had to guess to see if it fits. I can also make some sheets for my sections. So again, just with the same blank title block. And so now I'm going to drag my section views onto this sheet. Now I'm just going to check that I've got the right sections. So it's, what is it, section 4 and section 1. Okay, so back to my new sheet. Alright, so section 1 I'll do first. And section 4. I'll do like that. I'm not too worried about the layout at this stage, I'll just get it on. Okay, so they both need some tidying up, but I'll just get it so they fit onto the sheet. Okay, so I've got my two sections on the sheet there. Going back to the previous sheet now with the floor plan, you'll see that my section numbers or my section markers have numbers or references now.
I see.
So really that should be, yeah, so they need to be referenced. It needs to be on a sheet with that to pick up that reference. Okay, so so when you have things like that, though, you need to think about your layout still and make sure it's all neat and things aren't over the top of each other. All right, so to print that, it would basically be the same process. Back to print, and then again here, as long as it's on current window under setup. Again, just make sure zoom 100%. There, it doesn't need to have the center, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, so you can see that fits onto the sheet exactly the same way. And it gives the tag as well. So again, I'll just hit OK there. And I'll just use the same file name. Okay, so that's what you need to give me for not just the plan and the section, but don't forget the isometric views as well. Yep, sure.
If I have images and I want to use as in a paper in Revit, if I transfer from Revit to 3D and work on 3D and make a
rendered image, yep, sure.
I want to use in a Revit.
Yeah, just like I showed, just like I did then. So I'll do that again. So I'll just make another sheet. Okay, so I'll just make another blank one. Okay, so any renderings, if I've saved them into Revit, I can always drag them. So from here, this is saved in the renderings category. So when you go in,
I save in this part.
That's the quick way. So here, when you go save to project, there, and you put a view name in here, then it puts it into that rendering category. So down here, it goes into renderings.
I have not made that images in the Revit.
That's right.
I want to try.
That's right. So then that's the other way. So then, okay, so I could have dragged it from there straight onto the sheet and then set the size, and I'm sure you can do that. Now, if you've adjusted it in Photoshop, then you do what I just did before. Just go Insert, Image, and then you just choose. So any of these formats, you can just choose an insert. Okay, so that's the one I saved in Photoshop, and I can insert that onto any sheet or any view in Revit. And so then the only other thing would be the isometric views, and so again, don't forget about those. They're a really easy thing to create, and I think they're something people don't do enough of. So there we go. So especially those section box views, they can really make it clearer to people who aren't familiar with the design like you are, and then really quickly they can get a good understanding of the overall layout and everything. So just with the shadows turned on, they can be really effective. So again, it's up to you if you want to have them on sheets like that as well. That's absolutely fine, but the main requirement is that you have those rendered views as TIFF files and then the others as PDFs. And the whole idea is that it demonstrates you can make separate files for output from Revit that you can then go and work on in those other programs I mentioned to you earlier, like Photoshop, but also InDesign and the graphics programs you're going to be using more later on. And that's a big part of the process, touching up the work you've already done in post or in later programs that you use. So yeah, it's 1 moment, sorry.